everyone, it's Deke. Welcome into my Barbarian guide for Diablo IV. This is part 2. I'll put a link on screen here and in the description below if you want to watch part 1 first. However, this is probably fine as a standalone piece. What we're talking about today are stat priorities on each item specifically. So in the last video, we talked about stats and stat priorities in general as an overall discussion. Today, we're going to look at each item and talk about which stats are the ones you're looking for on those specific drops. Okay, so without a specific build in mind, let's look at all of the item slots and what stats you want to see on your items when they drop. For the Helm, if you're running a weapon mastery skill, the Helm can get ranks in weapon mastery skill. So for instance, as I was leveling up, I was using Deathblow, which I found to be an extremely powerful skill in the early game. Not so much in the late game, but very, very good from 1 to 50. So I was running a +3 ranks to Deathblow in my Helm slot. Now, if you're not running a mastery skill, cooldown reduction is the absolute best stat you can get on the Helm, and you want to get the highest roll you can. You can also get total armor percentage, which increases your total armor. So you know we've already talked about this, how powerful armor is to increase your character's survivability. You can also get maximum life on the Helm, and you can get strength and all stats. All stats are very good when you're trying to unlock specific Paragon bonuses. So we're really kind of talking about early game right now. In this video, we're going to talk more about Paragon and other videos, but all stats are kind of important to make sure you have enough stats in every category to get all your bonuses on your Paragon. But strength is a very, very powerful stat. You're getting direct damage and you're getting more armor from it. So strength is always a good call. Okay, so on the chest, until you're in World Tier 3, where you can start getting unique drops, you're going to want to look for something that has ranks of Challenging Shout. You know, I'm talking about builds generally here, but I will say for the Barbarian, we're somewhat locked into these three shouts that we have. We have Rallying Cry, Challenging Shout, and War Cry. And all of these are so powerful and they work so synergistically with each other. It's very difficult to get away from these. Challenging Shout is by far the best damage reducing ability probably in the game, aside from maybe an invulnerable shield. You can get flat damage reduction on the chest. You can get total armor percentage on the chest. And then once you've kind of gone through those things, you're looking at things like damage reduction while fortified, fortified generation, damage reduction from close. And then again, you can go into strength, dexterity, all stats. And then also you can get total damage on the chest. It's a good stat to have on your gear, but you're typically looking for more defensive things on the chest. Now, once you're in World Tier 3 and or World Tier 4, the Rage of Harrogath unique is going to be something that you can look at that's going to reduce your cooldowns even more, so you can get your shouts up more frequently. That's very powerful. And then if you're interested in playing Thorns, which is a very kind of cool supplemental thing to add into your kit, you're going to look for Razor Plate. So those are kind of two uniques that you would put on your chest. But I'm finding that I'm more interested in the amount of stats you can get on a non-unique chest because of how much defenses you can get out of it. I find that very powerful. For the legs, same thing here. I'm running Temerity, which is another unique. You can see this in World Tier 3 and World Tier 4. I actually think I didn't see one until World Tier 4, so it could be that it's locked behind Tier 4, but I think you can get it in 3 if I'm not mistaken. If you don't have this unique, again, we're going to be looking for ranks in Warcry, which is going to be a damage output, but it's increasing ranks and skills is so powerful. Then you can again get flat damage reduction. You can get armor, total armor percentage. You can get damage reduction while fortified. You can get dodge on this as well. And then strength, dexterity are all stats. You're only going to get 4 of these, but these are more of kind of like a stat priority. So for the boots, if you guys are familiar with Rob, who is the world first softcore barbarian, he has a lot of great videos and guides out there. A lot of information that I use here is stuff that I have looked at that he's done, things that I've tested myself, and kind of put those things together. But what he likes to do is he likes to reserve the boot slot for his mobility and utility. So you can get fury cost reduction, you can get movement speed, you can get movement speed after killing elites. But what I like to do is specifically, I want the fury cost reduction and I want the movement speed for sure. Then there's things like fortified generation, berserking duration, which is big for barbarians. Again, you can get your strength, your dexter, all stats, and you can get dodge chance. One thing I want to point out is with the boots, they have what's called an implicit stat. So they're going to roll with something like max evade charge increase or movement speed increase after evading. So evade is your spacebar button when you dash. So for the barb, one thing that I've found is even though you do have a lot of unstoppable abilities, which means you're immune to crowd control, being able to evade multiple times is extremely powerful in hard content. So there's fire on the ground and you evade to the left and you dodge the fire, but then something else pops up on the other side. A big goat man is trying to hit you and make you invulnerable, or stun you. You can evade again. So what I like to do is I like to find boots that have +2 max charges of evade, meaning you start with 1, you gain 2 from the boots. When you upgrade the boots to rank 5, you get a total of 4 ranks. You get a total of 4 charges, so you can evade 4 times. I've seen a lot of people talk about, the movement speed or reducing the cost from attacks and those types of things. But for me, I like the additional charges just so that I always have something on hand to get out of a bad situation. Okay, we go to the gloves. If you're running Whirlwind, you're obviously looking for the Gore's unique. But if you're not running that, then you're going to be looking for ranks of your core skill. So this is the only place you can get that. So unless there's like other uniques that have ranks of core skill, the glove slot is where you'll get things like ranks to upheaval, ranks to hammer of the ancients, ranks to rend. So you want to get your ranks of your core skill at max in your gloves. You want to get crit chance, because again, that's one of the only places you can actually get crit chance. Attack speed, I love on the gloves. It speeds up the actual animation that your character makes when attacking. So this is a direct damage increase, but it also just makes your character do things even faster. This really comes into play on skills like lunging strike. When you're dashing to a target, attack speed will make that animation very fast, and it's very important. Then you want to get strength. And for gloves, actually, lucky hit is a pretty good stat that you can also roll in your gloves that I think is pretty beneficial. Okay, so we get into the amulet. Here's where we want to get ranks in all defensive skills. Man, I am having a really hard time finding amulets in the game that have this on them. I have one that is a max roll, but it is a sacred item. It's not even ancestral yet, and I've not really been able to replace it because I'm not finding this. You also want cooldown reduction. Again, cooldown reduction is probably one of the, if not the most important stat for barbarians to reduce the shouts and things like Iron Skin or Ground Stomp, any of these cooldown related skills that you're using. So cooldown reduction on the amulet is very important. Again, you can get fury cost reduction on the amulet, very important. Then I like things, if I'm not finding the stuff that I like here, I like things like damage reduction while fortified or damage reduction from close. Another thing that I would say is maybe more important than those last two I mentioned is you can get ranks in some of your passive skills on the tree. And I've found this to be very, very powerful. So look for, if you can get the ranks in all defensive and the cooldown reduction, and then it rolls with some ranks in passive on your skill tree, take a look at what that is, what passive it rolls. Those can be very powerful as well. Okay, when we look at rings, and this will apply to both rings, resource generation is absolutely critical for the rings. Crit chance, again, these are the only places it can roll other than the gloves. Crit damage, vulnerable damage. If you get those 4 rolls on a ring for a barbarian, you're gold. Those are the best. Resource regen, crit chance, crit damage, vulnerable damage. If I don't get those perfectly, the things I'll look for beyond that would be lucky hit, physical damage, damage to close. I also like fortify generation, and then maybe max life, but really you're looking for your damage dealing skills on the rings. Okay, on the weapons, here's where you're getting your most important damaging skills. Vulnerable damage and crit damage, you want to see these on every single weapon slot. Something to point out with the weapons also is I mentioned the implicit skill that rolls with the boots. It's like max evade or whatever. With weapons, they have one as well. Swords roll with crit hit damage. So it's very good to use 2 one-handed swords in your sword one-handed slots. obviously a two-handed sword to attack with, and then your other two-hander is going to be a mace. So you can't change that one, but all those other ones can get crit hit damage there. So on the weapons, vulnerable damage, crit damage, I would say strength, and then you're looking for either damage to close or core skill damage. You could also go for, you know, damage to crowd controlled, damage to bleeding, damage to slowed. You're doing all those things usually, but you're looking for maybe close core in front of those. So quickly, let me just go over these implicit stats. So each weapon type has an implicit stat that it always rolls with. So for two-handed and one-handed swords, it's crit damage. For two-handed and one-handed maces, it's overpower damage. For two-handed and one-handed axes, it's damage to healthy. And then for the polearm, it's damage to injured. Okay, that's going to wrap up this section of the Barbarian Guide. I'm probably going to put out a couple more videos talking about skills and what builds are doing really well in the game and different aspects of the game, and also Paragon, which is a kind of a huge undertaking. Thanks everybody for checking out the channel. Please like the video, leave me a comment, that really helps with the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Thanks so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.